crisis on our southern border. There has been an unprecedented flood of children coming to this country illegally, exploiting a provision of the law that was passed in 2008 that was intended to address the issue of human trafficking. The crisis has reached proportions where there could be as many as 90,000 children coming to our border and seeking asylum. It has to be stopped, and it has to be stopped immediately. We have to take a number of steps to address this issue, including amending or repealing the provision of the law that was called the Trafficking Victims Prevention Act that equalizes treatment from children who come from any country that is the same as from Canada and Mexico. We have to move quickly to repatriate these children. The only way that this is going to stop is if plane loads of children arrive back in the countries in Central America that they came from, and their parents see the $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 that they have paid to the human traffickers is wasted. That's the only way that this is going to stop. And so their repatriation has to be expedited. We have to require mandatory detention. We have a program called Streamline where people were detained for a period of time. I even would think that even wearing ankle bracelets while they are here in this country would be appropriate. Increase the number of judges that can hear these cases to expedite the program. And there are people who are facing persecution in the country in which they live. We can increase our consulate personnel and our embassy personnel, and we must tell everyone who is seeking this asylum that they can't get it at our border, but if they want to go to one of our embassies and one of our consulates, then they can receive, they can hear their case pled and a decision can be made, not coming to the border of the United States of America. And it's obvious that primarily the three Central American countries, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras, are actually expediting this situation. And I believe that United States foreign aid should be directly related to the degree of cooperation that these countries are providing us in trying to stop this humanitarian crisis. Now, there are colleagues of mine in the United States Senate who want to let this continue. Anyone who wants this to continue ignores the fact that these children, especially young women, are subjected to worst kinds of human abuses from the worst people on earth, these coyotes. They're riding on the top of the trains. We don't know how many have fallen off or injured or killed. So this is a humanitarian issue and a crisis. Now, the President of the United States has asked for $3.7 billion. And incredibly, the President of the United States did not include a request to repeal the provision of the law which has opened this loophole. In fact, I read from his message to Congress, he says, finally, separate from this request, separate from the request for $3.7 billion, my administration will continue to work with the Congress to ensure that we have legal authorities to maximize the impact of our efforts. In other words, the President of the United States has not even asked that it be repealed. That is unbelievable and unconscionable. So there is a way forward on this. Congress needs to act and act immediately in a bipartisan basis. But neither I nor the majority of my Republican colleagues will support expenditure of billions of dollars, which will only perpetuate the problem until we have addressed the source of the problem, and that means the repeal of the law that was passed that creates this loophole, and the message sent to these countries, particularly in Central America, that if they come to the United States of America, they will be immediately returned. Will the Guard help out on the border? Of course. Of course the Guard will be helpful on the border. and I strongly believe that that should happen. But the fundamental problem is that people are exploiting a loophole that was never intended by the author of that law, which was Senator Dianne Feinstein of California. So this is a crisis. I have been down to our border. I have seen these children, and they are being treated humanely, but it cannot continue. Every nation has the first requirement to secure their borders, and our borders are not secure. And until our borders are secure, I will not pursue legislation that we pass through the United States Senate. Questions?
Why is this happening? What are the causes for this?
Well, a law was passed in 2008, but nothing really happened for a while. And then all of a sudden, this mass exodus or influx of illegals into our country began. The word was spread, even by radio and television in these Central American countries, that if you can get here, you can stay. The President of the United States, not long ago, basically made a statement that encouraged such movement of children as well. And all of that put together has made for a humanitarian crisis and a violation of our national security. By the way, many people who are now still coming across our border are not from Central American countries, and many of them are from other countries, and we cannot be assured that they are not coming here for reasons other than humanitarian.
What was that statement the President made, and do you think he manufactured this crisis?
I can't say that he manufactured it, but I think the statement that the President made obviously was a catalyst for this dramatic increase of inflow of children into our country.
What exactly was it that he said?
It was that people who had humanitarian challenge and were fear of persecution, that they would be given full legal capabilities to remain here, and that encouraged that. In fact, the interesting thing is the Los Angeles Times reported that last year in 2013, 20,805 children from these three countries were apprehended, and only 1,669 were repatriated. Well, when you have that kind of repatriated, they know that the chances are about 10 to 20 to 1 that they will never have to go back. And that's a result of what the President said.
You mentioned putting ankle bracelets on these children. Are you comfortable right now? It appears that either Border Patrol or HHS is now handing some of them off to shelters. Are you comfortable with them being in shelters around the country and outside of U.S. custody?
I am uncomfortable with the shelters, but the shelters aren't the problem. The shelters are the symptom of the problem because we have to handle them in some fashion. There are enormous volunteers and government people who are working very hard to help care for these children. As you know, I was down at the facility in Nogales. But we cannot handle this kind of dramatic numbers. And it would cost us very little to fly these people back as compared with the cost of taking care of them while they are here. And again, they are given many times a permiso, a slip, that they're supposed to report back after a certain period of time because of our inability to handle their cases. About 9 out of 10 of them don't show up.
Senator, hasn't the word gone out in Central America that it's a good time to come to the United States?
Absolutely.
In part because the House has not passed the DREAM Act that the Senate passed. And if that had happened, the President wouldn't have suspended the push for deportations against young people in America. And there wouldn't be this issue. So shouldn't the House pass the DREAM Act?
I see no connection between the DREAM Act and what is happening. The
why
DREAM
the
Act is for people, is for children who were brought here involuntarily by their parents. That's what the DREAM Act is all about. These children are showing up at the border by themselves.
Yeah, but the word
I strongly, look, I supported the DREAM Act as part of overall comprehensive immigration reform. But the fact is that this is not connected to whether we pass the DREAM Act or not.
But isn't
That's
that why
my,
the word
that is my
happened?
opinion, and I can't keep responding to your same allegation except to say that I don't believe that there is that connection.
But Senator, let's broaden it though. Some are saying that the failure to get comprehensive immigration reform passed and signed by the president has directly led to this. So doesn't Congress bear some of the responsibility for what's going on?
I will say that Congress should have passed the comprehensive immigration reform, which called for 90% effective control of our border and 100% situational awareness. The expenditure of $8 billion, which would have come from fees for people who are on the path to citizenship. But the President of the United States is the President of the United States. During the Bush years, it was made clear that these people who came illegally were going to be returned. When the message is out that they're going to be able to stay, then they are going to come and stay. There's no other way you can account from roughly 12,000 people who came a year or two ago to the estimate of some 90,000 today.
Do you buy Democrats' argument that they're fleeing violence in their home countries and that's why they're coming here, and so we have a responsibility to take them in as refugees?
I think that there are some who may be. I also would argue these countries have been this violent for many years. This does not account for the dramatic increase in children who have come here. I would also argue that there are many other countries in the world where children are subject to violence as well. If those children are subject to violence, then we should have a system expanding our consulate and our embassy capabilities, that they come to our embassy and consulates in the country in which they live and apply for asylum, not come to our border.
Senator, you said that you want, it would cost very little to fly them back versus taking care of
As
them
compared with the cost of feeding, housing, and caring for them now.
So what would it take to put together a program to fly them back?
Be easy, you just charter airplanes.
Would it take?
We do that.
Congress need
We've
to
done that.
do something?
I mean, we do that routinely.
It's not something that would have to go through Congress.
The funding for it probably would have to go through Congress, and I want to repeat, we will not, we Republicans, let me say, I have talked to a number of my colleagues who are Republican senators. We will not agree to the additional funds, the $3.7 billion, most of which is to care for these children and provide the facilities until we can assure the American people that it's going to stop. And unfortunately, that is not in the President's request.
One of your propositions is to allow 5,000 visas,
Yes.
refugee visas, with 90,000 expected to come, 5,000 for each of these countries. We're talking 15,000 visas between the three countries in question. That doesn't even add up to the numbers that are expected. How is it that 5,000 is a reasonable number?
I think it's a reasonable number to expand the number of visas. I do not believe that we should give a visa to 90,000 children who are coming to this country. That is just not appropriate. As I say, there are children all over the world. Look at what happened in Nigeria with the young women who are subject to persecution. The United States of America should do whatever we can to help these people in the countries in which they live and go through a normal process to give them a visa.
Jay Johnson says the Border Patrol and ICE are running out of money, in large part because of this crisis, and that money could run out by August. What will you do to help them?
We will help them, and we will give them the money that they need, but only on the proviso that we can see an end to this situation, which is overwhelming our border and our country.
So is this going to become
We're just not going to spend money that will perpetuate a situation where maybe 90,000 more next year, or 90,000 the year before. Now we are seeing people coming from all over the world. We have to have a secure border, and we have to have an end to this influx of people who are coming to our country illegally, as tragic as the story may be. But aren't you and others concerned as what is happening? Wouldn't you want it stopped immediately, what's happening to these children as they come up? Young women are being raped. There are estimates that as high as a third of the young women are raped. These children are falling off of trains. They're dying. They're being injured. That should be a reason enough to have it stopped. And if they want to have asylum in our country, then we should process that in their own country before they embark on this journey of 15, 20, 30 days where they're subject to the worst kinds of human rights abuses.
The flip side of that is, what does that tell you about their desperation to come to this country, to flee their home country?
It
Seems to
tells
say a lot if they're willing to risk all
it
that.
tells me that there are people who are desperate to get to this country from all over the world. We should not facilitate a situation where they are subject to this.
Senator, how about putting pressure on the Mexican government not to let the kids climb on the trains?
Absolutely. Mexican government as well as the 3 countries in Central America. Condition our aid to those 3 countries. We do not extend foreign aid to the Mexican government, but there are a whole lot of ways that we can put pressure on the Mexican government, including the issue of tourism.
So where is this going legislatively now? Because the House is
It
going...
can go very easily. It can go very easily. All the president has to do is say that he supports the repeal of the act. It can be done on Tuesday. But unfortunately, we already see some of my liberal Democrat friends who are saying that we should not change the law, that we should allow the situation to prevail. It is outrageous to have this continue where children are being subjected to things they're being subjected to as they leave Central America and come to this country.
Can you see a scenario where ICE and the Border Patrol begin to run out of money in August because there's a standoff over this?
Well, it depends on what they're doing. To fund a continuous flow of people coming to this country is not acceptable. And it's up to the President of the United States to understand. Well, the President himself on several occasions said that this was unacceptable in his public statements and public meetings. If it's unacceptable, then he should encourage the Congress to act. The President should put his money where his mouth is.
There are a lot of calls by the candidates for governor here in Arizona to beef up our border, send National Guard to our border. Do you see merit in any of those ideas?
Of course I do. Of course I do. One of the things that the National Guard does is they help out in a whole lot of areas, but they do not carry weapons and they do not apprehend people. But their very presence on the border is a deterrent to those who cross the border. So yes, I want the Guard on the border, and I know for a fact that there is technology that exists that we developed in Iraq and Afghanistan, which could give us the 90% effective control of our border and 100% situational awareness. That technology is available today and could be installed. Only this administration has not done it. Okay? Any more?
Are you going to endorse Tom Horn?
No.
No?
No.
Why? Can you explain why?
I'm not endorsing the Attorney General or Tom Horn because I don't believe that he should be elected. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thanks very much. Okay, see you guys. Thanks for coming in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you,
for
Senator.
coming in. It's good to see you as always.
You.
I read that press